February 19th, 1938. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we lived in Pittsburgh until about 1942. And my brother was born before that, and my sister was born in 1942. And as the war started, my dad enlisted in the Army. And in the fall of 42, my dad was shipped overseas. My dad didn't have to go in the Army because he had children, but that's what he did. He signed up. My mother signed off for him, and that made his mother not too happy. So there were strained relationships a little bit, but we remained in Pittsburgh, and of course he was overseas for pretty much 4 years and came home in, I guess, 1946. He went looking for a job. He interviewed in the car industry, car business, and he got hired by Buick, and we had to move to Cleveland, Ohio. So we moved to Cleveland, Ohio in 46 or 47, I'm not sure exactly because I don't know how long it took. We were there for a year or 2 years, and then he got promoted, and we went back to Pittsburgh, from 48, I guess, 48 or so. And we were there and transferred again to Detroit. So we left for Detroit, and we got there in right around 1950. I don't know the exact date. But when he got the promotion, he thought, well, he had died and gone to heaven. He didn't expect to go any further. So we built a house in Dearborn, Michigan. And we moved in September. And in November, he got promoted again. And we had to move to Flint, Michigan. That's when I was a halfway junior in high school. So we moved there in January of 55, and I finished my junior year, then I had my senior year and graduated in 56, and he got another transfer and he moved to Chicago. We had never lived there, and I left and went to the University of Michigan. And I graduated from college in 1960, and Mimi and I got married in August of 60. We set up in Chicago, and she was a teacher in Skokie, and I worked for a Buick dealer in Evanston because I was 1A in the draft. And when you were 1A in the draft, nobody wanted to hire you. They told you, come back and see me after you've done your service time. And I had to go on active duty. And we knew that was coming, so I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri to do basic training. And then after basic training, I got sent to Fort Ord, California. And I spent my time in the Army till I got out in, I guess it was October of that year, looking for a job, and I got a job with Cadillac. And she got a teaching job, and we lived in Taylor Township, Michigan. And then in 62, your Aunt Ann was born. We decided we needed to buy a house, so we bought a house in Detroit. And then your mother was born in March, and in September I got transferred to Boston. We stayed there until the spring of 69 when I got a promotion, and we moved to Hartford, Connecticut. Lived in Simsbury, stayed there until 77, and then they wanted me to transfer to Albany, which I did in 77, 78. We moved up to Albany, and I worked for Cadillac up here in New York, and then in 82, I had the chance to buy into the dealership in Syracuse, and I did with a partner. We're still here. We lived in one house for about 21 years, and then we built this house in 2004. And last year I retired, or 2009 or 10. My mother, was from the days of the old school, and whatever, and that was something I felt that he wanted to and had to do. I mean, World War II is quite foreign to anybody that has been born since then. Yeah. And that was that was very big in the country, and you know, a different army than we have today, and a lot of people volunteered, and a lot of young guys had to go to war, you know, because of Hitler in Germany. My dad wanted to do it, and my mother would support what he wanted to do. His mother didn't much. He would have preferred my mother stand up and say, no, you can't go and stuff.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the way my mother was, you know. She was patriotic and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So she did it. And, you know, it meant she had to spend 4 years, you know, while he was away. We actually had to move a couple of times during that because of circumstances. I think we got kicked out of one house. You know, when he left, we had lived in an area called Mount Lemmon in Pittsburgh, and we moved to where his mother and sister lived. And we lived a couple of places in Brookline during the war. I mean, we went from one place to the other. I guess it was his army pay sent home took care of the groceries and stuff. There were rationing stamps and sugar stamps and gas stamps, and we did not have a car. My Aunt Dot, who was my dad's sister, she had a 1937 Pontiac, and what people did in those days, on Sundays you might have taken a drive, and once in a while she took us on a drive on Sundays. As a kid, everything's fine. You think things are fine, and I don't know how tough they were for my mother and my grandmother, but we got along, we made it, I guess. My dad came home from the Army, and he had a period of time, you know, I don't know the exact time that he came home. It was in roughly 1946, and he had to look for a job, and there were a lot of servicemen coming back looking for jobs, and I don't know how much job hunting he had to do, very honestly, but eventually he took the job working for Buick, and it meant going to Cleveland, you know, moving to Cleveland. So that was sort of foreign because my mother had always lived in Pittsburgh, and it meant leaving her mother, who had lived with us for 4 years. So we were in Cleveland for a year and a half or so, and my dad was, you know, at that time older than a lot of other people that were in jobs like that because he'd had that experience, and you know, he was in his 30s, and a lot of guys coming back from the service were in their 20s. So there was a lot of fast promotions went on then, and because of his experience, he got these promotions. And I don't see the moves as hard, you know, because I did it. But a lot of people, I mean, you know, like Mimi, she never lived anywhere but Flint, Michigan. So until she went to college, but that's, you know, that's the way it is. There's pros and cons. You learn by moving, and you sometimes lose out on, you know, long-term relationships, you know, from growing up in the same area for a long time. Grandma Rose, I think, from stories I've been told, was a little fun-loving and had a good time. She was restricted because she had rheumatic fever when she was young, which is a heart condition. The story I know, she was never supposed to have children because of the heart condition, but she didn't listen to a lot of those kind of things. But little you knew of her, she was pretty good people. She believed, she just trusted in God, and that was her way of doing things. You know, she just did what she thought was the right thing to do, and she went and had the kids, and she lived till she was 81 years old. So I guess it wasn't too bad. You know, my grandfather was just a super nice guy. He was a good guy. Loved baseball, and he's the one that, you know, talked to me about baseball, and we listened to games on the radio. As I say, we all sat in his dining room where the big radio was and listened to the Pittsburgh Pirates on the radio and stuff. He was a genuinely good guy, and my grandmother on that side, my dad's mother, they were of German descent, and she was tough. The whole time I knew her, she was always sick. I mean, she was always upstairs in bed, or the other thing I remember, she drank a beer a day, and that was supposed to be for medicinal purposes.